you an amateur archaeologist in the United States? Do you enjoy looking for things such as Native American artifacts, Civil War relics, Revolutionary War relics, you name it, then this video is for you. Particularly Native American artifacts, but it does cover a broader range of things, particularly one law. So in this video, we're going to talk about two laws that every amateur archaeologist should familiarize themselves with before going out and wading creeks or potentially stumbling across things in places such as national forests or things like that. So let's delve into it now. Artifact hunting can be an exciting and rewarding hobby, whether you're out looking for Native American arrowheads, old tools, or relics from the past. But did you know that many of the items you come across may be protected by law? In the United States, there are strict rules that govern the collection and removal of historical artifacts, especially when it comes to public lands. In this video, we're diving into the laws every amateur archaeologist needs to know to avoid legal trouble. When it comes to hunting for artifacts in the United States, the laws are pretty complicated and can vary depending on where you're looking, meaning which state you're in. There are federal laws that protect archaeological sites and objects, and there are also state-specific regulations that you should be aware of. This particular video is mainly focused on the federal side of things that apply to all 50 states. And if you're interested in a complete breakdown of the laws state by state, comment your state below and we'll start covering the most requested ones that we see. Most states are similar regardless though, and the variations all pretty much lead to the same thing. Any form of public grounds, known archaeological sites, or federal property of any sort is not authorized and illegal to remove artifacts from, whereas private lands such as farm fields, backyards, etc. are generally allowed and legal. Now, let's get into some specifics. The first law that you should know about and need to know about is the Archaeological Resources Protection Act, or ARPA, which was passed in 1979. ARPA, enacted in 1979, is a key federal law aimed at safeguarding archaeological sites and artifacts on public lands in the United States. Under ARPA, it is illegal to excavate, remove, damage, or otherwise alter archaeological resources from public lands without a valid permit. This law was established to combat the looting and destruction of historical and cultural sites, ensuring that these valuable artifacts and sites are preserved for future generations. ARPA covers all federal lands, including national parks, national forests, military installations, and other lands owned by the U.S. government. The law applies to any item over 100 years old that holds cultural or historical significance, such as pottery, tools, fossils, or other artifacts, such as old glass bottles, old bullets, etc. Now, how could you receive a permit under ARPA to legally remove artifacts from public lands? The permit process ensures that any excavation or research is conducted responsibly and ethically with minimal impact on the site. Here's a short outline of the steps involved in obtaining an ARPA permit. Step number 1, you must determine your eligibility. The permit is generally only granted to professional archaeologists or researchers affiliated with academic or research institutions. Applicants must demonstrate that they have the expertise and resources to conduct the excavation responsibly. Step number 2 is to submit an application. The application for an ARPA permit can be submitted to the appropriate federal agency such as the National Park Service, the Bureau of Land Management, or U.S. Forest Service. The application will require you to outline the purpose of the excavation, the research plan, and the methods that you intend to use on such plan. Step number 3 is to demonstrate public benefit. The applicant must show that the excavation will benefit the public through increased knowledge, education, or preservation. This may involve committing to publishing findings or presenting them in educational settings. Step number 4, consult with Native American tribes. In cases where artifacts or sites are culturally significant to Native American tribes, the applicant must consult with these groups and consider their concerns before granting a permit. Step number 5 is compliance with environmental laws. You also need to comply with other environmental regulations, such as the National Environmental Policy Act, which ensures that the excavation will not harm the surrounding ecosystem. Once the permit is granted, it usually comes with strict guidelines on how the excavation must be conducted, as well as requirements for the preservation and documentation of any discovered artifacts. Let's talk about the Native American Graves Protection and Repatriation Act, or NAGPRA, NAGPRA for short. These laws exist to protect indigenous cultural heritage, and breaking them can result in some serious legal consequences. If you disturb Native American burial sites or remove sacred objects from said burial site, you could be prosecuted under NAGPRA. The penalties here can range from hefty fines to criminal charges depending on the severity of the offense. And it's not just federal land where you have to be careful of this law. Many states have their own laws that protect archaeological resources on state-owned land, and NAGPRA covers all burial sites, no matter what land they're on, in any case. Ignoring these laws can lead to similar consequences, including losing your right to collect artifacts in the future. But beyond the legal consequences, there's a much broader impact to consider. When someone digs up an artifact without proper research or documentation, particularly from a burial mound, it destroys valuable context. The location of an artifact, how it was placed, and its surroundings all tell a bigger story. By removing these items improperly, we lose vital information that could have helped archaeologists and historians understand the past. This loss of context can prevent future generations from learning about and appreciating the cultures that came before us. It's not just about following the law, it's about preserving history for the benefit of everyone. So if you discover a mound or a supposed burial site anywhere on private land, make sure to go through the proper channels and steps before you go excavating it yourself. So to review, here's the tips broken down in a more digestible form. Step number 1, always get permission. If you're hunting artifacts on private land, always get permission from the landowner. It's best to have this permission in writing, especially if you're planning to dig. This protects both you and the landowner. Step number 2, stick to surface collecting if you're in a gray area. We all have that creek or part of the river that isn't technically on protected or federally owned land, and you're not really sure who the technical owner is. We deem these areas gray areas. One of the safest and most legal ways to enjoy artifact hunting when searching these gray areas is by simply surface collecting. This means only picking up artifacts that you find on the surface of the ground without disturbing the soil or creek beds. Step number 3, avoid protected areas at all costs. Make sure to avoid protected areas such as national parks, federal lands, or archaeological sites. Hunting for artifacts in these places is almost always illegal without a permit, so it's best to stay clear of these areas altogether. Step number 4, report significant finds. If you are in a protected area and you do happen to stumble across something significant, such as an ancient tool or artifact that seems culturally important, consider reporting your find to local authorities or a nearby museum. By following the laws and respecting archaeological sites and thinking about the bigger picture, we can all help preserve these pieces of the past for our future generations.